Hi guys, Aloha Friday. How are you? I hope you are having a beautiful day today. So want to piggyback off the quantum physics lesson from last week and really make this a little bit more applicable in our own lives, especially how the ideas of quantum physics can get us to start thinking a little bit more positively. And when I was coming up with this list of what thinking positively actually looks like, what that mindset looks like, the first question that I started with is, well, why or what causes people to not think positively? And some of the biggest reasons that I got within myself and kind of introspecting on my own work and thinking about why people don't think positively is because you're living in the past. So you're constantly worrying about what happened yesterday, the struggles. You think that cycles from yesterday will continue to replay and repeat into your future. You're worried about a heartbreak or a trauma. You're worried about debt. You're worried about your business not being successful. Lots of different reasons why people worry, but the more that you bring those worries into your present being, it doesn't allow space for you to think in a positive way. Another reason why people think not so positively when it comes to, let's say you're thinking about your future, the future of your business or a future relationship, you start worrying and trying to micromanage all of the details. Let's say you have a big project at work and you're responsible for executing it, but there's lots of other players involved. You're running a team. And so you start in your mind trying to micromanage all of the details, all of the way, well, what does Susie have to do and what does Becky have to do, and who can I control, or in a relationship, well, I could only be happy with you if you acted like this, and started to try to mold or get everybody in your life, in your environment, to play into your desires, into what you see, and try to orchestrate every single detail according to your plan. Another reason why people don't think so positively is being in indecision. I always relate this when I'm speaking to my clients about like when they're talking about really big indecisive moments for themselves, as two of the best CrossFit teams playing tug of war with your thoughts. I don't know which way to go. I don't know whether to do this. I don't know whether to do that. I just don't see the right path for myself. And that style of indecision is just, it like drives you into helplessness and not knowing, feeling so disempowered. Which leads me into my last thing is when you're feeling helpless, like, what if something really, really tough is happening? What if you are going through a divorce? What if something horrible just happened to one of your children? What if, what if you lost your dream job? What if, there's lots of different what ifs where it's like thinking positive is not even an option. Like being an optimistic person is not even an option. And so what I've come up with is some solutions to some of those common reasons why people tend to not think so positively. Um, so, thinking positive. If you're living in the past, one of the greatest ways to bypass the past scenarios is to get into your future. This can happen in meditations, this can happen in visualizations. And what I mean by live in your future is not just say, this is the vision, this is the goal, this is what I want for my future, but how would you feel? What emotions would you have? Just as real as your past emotions are, what can you cultivate within yourself to really feel in your body? How you would feel if that future event has already occurred? Really getting into that space. I do this every night before I go to bed. I really visualize tomorrow. Sometimes my goals from 6 months from now, and I really visualize and I try to like really, really feel with my whole body. Who would I be there? How would she feel? How complete, how perfect, how awesome would that feeling be for me? So living in the future, and ultimately that's going to feel better than worrying about the past. That's one way of getting around being in the past, is to live in your future. Another way, when you're worrying about the details, is setting a goal, setting an intention, and then releasing it to the universe, to God, to whatever faith that you have in. Like, how many times in your life have you had awesome surprises and these things people call coincidences, and allowed the universe to just surprise you? So if you were craving something, you wanted to accomplish something, and you just started making moves in that direction. Instead of thinking about the project at work and how you're going to have to control absolutely everybody in your own environment, to they've got to do this and they've got to do that, just to start really having faith that the project is going to work out, things will be okay, this debt's not going to come over me, I'll figure out a way, like, I don't know how, but I'll figure out a way to make more money. Which thought feels better? Oh my gosh, look at all my debt? Or I don't know how, but I will figure out a way to make more money. And when you start doing that, you will literally create the space for the universe to surprise you. And it's absolutely beautiful. Lots of stories with this. I was just on the phone with my client this morning, and it's a client I've been working with for about 3.5 months. And I send these daily or pre-session kind of sheets, and it really ends up being like a diary, so you can see your journey through coaching. And she was telling me about a really awesome success story. Our whole call today was like so many of her successes. And she was telling me how she took this week to look through her past journal entries and where her thoughts were when we first started working together were so drastically different, of like not knowing the how, but just like having faith now and thinking more confidently and being more present and working on her goals, and not really realizing that it has to be a certain way, but just knowing and having faith that things will work out. That in itself has yielded to some awesome surprises for her this week. And just watching that journey, watching that evolution in her has been absolutely incredible, because she committed and she has faith in the process, and she's been doing small little steps along the way, and then these awesome rewards have been coming her way. So, and things that she was like, I totally didn't expect this to happen, you know? So that's another way to start thinking a little bit more positively, is to really have faith, just allow faith to take over. If you're in indecision, this is a tough one, that tug of war. I don't know what's going on. So one of the things that I highly suggest, and I've done this in another video, but it's getting clear on your why. Why do you want what you want? And really getting into what is your ultimate desire? And sometimes a lot of indecision comes from being unclear about what it is that you actually desire. So it's really, really neat. Once you start aligning your thoughts with your desire, with your why, that indecision will oftentimes disappear. You'll start seeing that there really is only one path. And it might be uncomfortable to move in that direction sometimes, because you're so used to having multiple paths or being in split decisions in the past. But when you get really clear on your why, and when you have this approach of what is it that I ultimately desire and why do I desire it, a lot of times the indecision will just move out of the way. Another thing that I noticed too is, I did this with my GPS video for you guys, but reroute, like, especially when you're living in faith and you're already thinking positively in that direction, just pick a decision, just pick one and go for it. Like, take that mind drama away, just make a decision and move in that direction and see what happens, and you can always readjust. Makes it so much easier. I'm just gonna decide and I'm gonna go for it. And the last one is like, when life is really tough, when something comes at you, the death of a loved one, or, you know, there are certain times where you really should feel grief. And I don't recommend always feeling positive all the time. There's certain aspect to allowing your emotions to travel down what I call the emotional scale. So I'm gonna move this just a little bit so you guys can see this part a little bit better. So the emotional scale, the way that it works is in that quantum world where solid matter has like a really low vibration. It has a really slow wave, if we get it. So the emotions that are vibrating lower and the emotions that are less matter, more energy, that are vibrating much higher. So when you are feeling lust or competition, there's so much more matter in that. It's like it's denser, it's heavier. That's why you get that unease in your heart and in your stomach or in your throat feels a little bit blocked up. So the idea is if you're really feeling really negative and something has happened to you in life where it's super hard to like just reach for the highest woohoo, I'm so in love, when my husband just died, like, no, honor yourself. Honor yourself for being in that place. Allow those emotions. And as you do, what naturally happens with energy is that it wants to start getting mobile again. It wants to start creating more movement. And so you start moving up the emotional scale. So you'll go from lust and competition or fear, guilt, shame. And this is a lot of emotions that we feel, and kind of the scale that they go into. So give yourself the ability to feel guilty. Really feel into the guilt. And then you'll see that eventually it'll naturally turn into apathy. And you'll be like, oh, whatever, it just doesn't matter. I don't even care. And even though that still feels a little bit powerless, like things are happening to you, it's a higher vibration than the energy of grief, where grief is like you're really allowing yourself to experience it. And then you can go into, well, hey, what when I experience the grief from the loss of a loved one, let's say, and that's really appropriate emotion to have, what's the next emotion? It's going to be fear. Like, how am I going to live my life without my loved one? You know, how am I going to live my life? So like all these unknowns that we have, really allow yourself to get into the emotion of fear. And from fear, you'll start knowing, well, if I'm afraid of not knowing, then maybe I can move into desire, into wanting, into, right? And that moves us back into thinking a little bit more positively, that we can start imagining something that's a little bit brighter, that's a little bit easier on our day. And so then you can get angry, which is like actually so powerful, because like instead of just apathy, which is down here where like you don't care and everything is just over and it doesn't matter, anger already has a bigger vibration to it. It has some power behind it. It makes you want to move. It makes you want to make a change. It makes you want to tell that person off. Sometimes I recommend to my clients, like, cool, if you're in anger, like write a letter to the person you're angry at. Maybe even give it to them. You can always apologize later, but honor that emotion, honor the anger. And then pride, courage, get into a state of neutrality. But neutrality is so much more fulfilling than apathy, right? And then you start moving into willingness, acceptance, reason, finding reasons, finding again your willingness, your desire. And it can go further into love, joy, and ultimately peace, you know. And this emotional scale moves even higher, to the place where you really can reach enlightenment. You know, the Buddha, Jesus, Mother Teresa, certain people in our history have gotten to that place. I kind of cut it off at peace because I figured for us simple folks, maybe that's where we'll stop for the time being. But hey, why not strive for enlightenment if that's really calling to you? So that is another tool that'll really help you get from helplessness and move up that emotional scale to where you can start having a little bit more of a positive, a higher vibrating thought again. So I hope this is really helpful on ways to start thinking positively. And I just want to honor you and tell you that I hope you have an absolutely beautiful weekend. And I'll be back on Monday for Metaphorically Speaking. All right, guys, all my love. And as always, if you're working through any of this and you need some support, feel free to reach out. I am here for you. And I would love to work with you further in your own personal journeys. All right, toodles.